Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Oceanic Pro League. I'm, of course, Max Atlas Anderson, joined by the wonderful Chris Papa Smithy Smith. And we're here for the final day of Week 6. We are definitely getting into the business end. And before we do anything, let's have a look at the standings and how everything is shaken up thus far. The Chiefs still way out ahead with 12-1, of course, losing that game to Fortnite.
But Atlas, they are confirmed as your top place teams going into the playoffs. Direwolves, Legacy, Team Immunity, Avant-Garde. They're really the teams battling for the top 4, but they're not mathematically out with a shout. Sudden Fear in 6th.
Yeah, and Team Fortnite bringing up the rear there as well, of course, only with one extra loss here than Sudden Fear. And those bottom 2 places are very, very important because they need to get the highest seed so that they don't have to face the top OCS team that is going to be coming through, because they're looking tough.
That's right. There's so much competition, even for 6th place. Even though you're in that relegation battle, you still get your choice of your OCS team. Theoretically, give yourself the biggest chance to be able to get back into the OPL next season.
Yeah, exactly. But let's have a look at the schedule, see which games we have lined up for you this week, ladies and gentlemen. It's Sudden Fear. They're going to be taking on Legacy today. That's going to be our first match. And Direwolves then face off against Legacy as well.
And it's a triple dose of Sudden Fear this week, as Sudden Fear will take on Avant on Thursday, and finally the Chiefs in the last match of the week.
Yeah, and that's going to be a very tough match, but we'll see whether the Chiefs' Achilles heel continues to be sort of these lower place teams. I'm not entirely sure.
Such a notable result, of course, last week. Fortnite versus the Chiefs. The undefeated Chiefs finally coming crumbling down to Fortnite.
Oh, yeah.
The excitement, it was palpable in the studio. A lot of people on Twitter just commenting on it. Talked to Swiffer today, feeling a bit sheepish about the result. It was a massive game. It's lovely to see an upset like that in the OPL, because we were thinking 14-0.
Yeah, but the thing was, you know, Fortnite, they came in off an upset as well. So the upset kings coming through, and we'll see whether they make it back through to the OPL for the next split. But ladies and gentlemen, if you want to have your say on what's going on in the OPL, make sure you get in touch with us on Twitter. Use that hashtag #IamOPL. And Papa Smithy, I'm not going to say anything about anything aquatic.
No aquatic things today, Atlas.
Not this time.
I'll give you some rope this time. You'll hang yourself eventually. Don't worry about it. But
wow.
If you want any... Look, don't need to be morbid about it, mate. We're just talking about aquatic creatures. So, if you want any more information about the OPL, there's been actually a lot of information, some competitive rulings and other information. Go to oce.lolesports.com. Get your information about the standings, the schedule. 2 matches today, 2 matches Thursday, then a final big match day before we start to move on to those knockout stages.
Yeah, precisely. And of course, you may notice the absence of Rich Gang, but you can find out all that information over on that website oce.lolesports.com, that Papa Smithy is getting incredibly good at saying. But, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into our first match. It is, of course, going to be between going to be between Legacy and Sudden Fear. Of course, Legacy with a old member coming back from the dead, you have to think. I'm very, very excited about this. But before we get on to that, I want to talk about Sudden Fear and a certain mid laner who seems to be pretty good at LeBlanc.
Absolutely. Apaps, when he's picked up the MVP, when Sudden Fear looked the best, it's on the LeBlanc. You can see the KDA is coming through. Apaps' KDA on LeBlanc, 6.6, a very high KDA by OPL standards. Other mids, though, 1.4. That's a huge fall in power. We've been talking about Paps in the similar vein as mid laners like Swiffer when we're talking about his LeBlanc play. Will it get through the draft, though? They're on the blue side, so they're hoping to snap it up potentially as a first pick. We've actually seen first pick LeBlanc in many regions, such as the power of that champion, even on patch 5.5. Will it sneak through, though, given just the proficiency with that champion? I mean, the interesting statistic also is that Choo-Choo's, another noted assassin player, only a 4.4 KDA. So, I mean, at least statistically speaking, Paps is right up there in terms of LeBlanc play.
Yeah, and they pick up their wins when he's playing on that LeBlanc as well, so we'll see whether it is going to be Legacy taking that one away. Of course, Choo-Choo's, he's got so many champions in his repertoire, has played 7 unique champions thus far in the OPL, I believe, has busted out the Victor as well, who's been making some worldwide, I guess, excitement coming through here, so we'll see whether he's going to pick that one up, whether that's going to be joining the meta, or whether Choo-Choo's has a different plan for us today.
And let's come back to your previous point, of course. Yeah. There's a new top laner in the realm for Legacy, a new old top laner, an Oceanic representative in 2014 at the wildcard. That's Minky Whale, everyone's favorite larrikin of the Oceanic scene.
He's my favorite huge dragon, Papa Smithy. I'm very excited.
Well, we're on patch 5.5, so huge dragons suddenly relevant again, and look who's back.
Oh, Minky Whale, welcome back onto the side of Legacy. We'll see whether he's going to jump out and take things to sudden fear here. Of course, with 2 games in a row as well, we'll see whether Minkiewell is going to be what gets Legacy ahead here, because you have to think that they're looking forward to the Direwolves match, which is going to be terrifying, but they can't falter here.
And on the other side of the coin, Sudden Fear, if they want to give themselves any chance of assaulting the top 5, the top 4 even, they need to be winning this game. Sudden Fear must win games across the board. Same thing we hyped Fauna up for last time they were playing, and they rose to the challenge with a big 2-0. Sudden Fear, against tough opposition, need to do the same.
Yeah, and the ban's already coming through thick and fast, ladies and gentlemen. Morgana and Zed being taken away from Legacy. I like the Morgana ban. Ejim 3-0 on that champion thus far. Just get rid of it. Zed banned away from Choo Choo's. Hasn't actually played it in the OPL just yet, but it is going to be Scion, the final ban now for Sudden Fear. And Rek'Sai, of course, pretty standard against a pink Bomi, but interesting that Carbon had banned that away because there's so many first pickable champions. And Carbon, he'd be more than happy to pick up the Rek'Sai if Sudden Fear have more priority on a different champion. And Legacy, they're wondering whether they're going to ban the Nidalee, and they are.
I mean, the consideration probably was, what are the champions that Sudden Fear wouldn't snap up at first pick that Legacy prioritized? Obviously, the LeBlanc would have been taken at first, but they're not willing to give that over to Paps. Looks like they're going to be considering the Lissandra. Lissandra been dipping in popularity despite seeing not a lot of changes. In fact, on this patch 5.5, finally had her Q damage nerfed, so her wave clear especially is hurt. Not quite the Merlinomicon and smashing down the waves in just a couple of seconds. Need a few more auto attacks, takes a bit longer, need a bit more ability power, but still a very reliable potential frontliner, a very reliable flex pick. A good first pick.
Yeah, fantastic flex pick, but oh my goodness, Minkiewell's Aurelia has escaped the ban phase, and I've heard tell that this Aurelia is absolutely terrifying. Of course, Minkiewell, sort of one of those players that has complete mastery in quite a few champions there in the top lane, doesn't branch out quite as much, and Aurelia definitely in that wheelhouse, and Carbon going back to the Sejuani, but this is 5.5. She is terrifying on this patch.
And of course, it was Naya in the jungle for Fortnite really showing the way. We saw a couple of first pick Sejuanis kind of falter, but of course the Sejuani mains, they were the ones smiling at those patch notes. And you saw just how strong she can be. Speaking of strong, that is quite the dive, quite the front line coming through from Legacy.
And the lockdown here coming through as well. And we'll see whether Choo Choo's is going to augment that with more CC coming through from the mid lane. I'm not entirely sure what he's going to bring, but could you imagine a Victor with just the easiest gravity field of his life after that Glacial Prison?
Absolutely. There's so many AoE wombo opportunities. Sudden Fear, though, they're not buying into the tank meta hype. They're going for the Lee Sin.
Yeah.
I quite like this. I was actually talking to Deficio on Skype about junglers. He said, look, the Lee Sins, the Rek'Sais, they're not going to fall away just yet. Because, and we kind of saw evidence of that when we saw Amumu versus Sejuani in the jungle and everyone falling low. In fact, the Amumu actually getting executed in the jungle. You fall low, and that still leaves that window for those skirmish junglers like Lee Sin. If they're on the ball, if you get the early wards down and you see the Piggy just at a sliver of life, get in there and pick up some kills.
Yeah, and we'll see whether a Pink Bomi can do it. Of course, the Pink Bomi 1-3 now currently on that Lee Sin. They have had some difficult games coming through here, but it definitely is a comfort pick for him. And for Moon, actually joining the ranks of the substitute play here for Sudden Fear, who played, that was Energizer, of course, played Sivir 4 games in a row when he was playing for Sudden Fear. So Moon going to pick that one up. Hasn't actually played it in the OPL just yet, despite the fact that Sudden Fear have got quite a few games on it. But looking back over at Legacy, that was the fastest lock-in of that Annie and the Kalista that we've seen in quite a long time. These guys know exactly what they want.
And this was the Kalista lane that first came to prominence. We saw all the engaged Kalista lanes come through. Kalista Annie, Kalista Morgana, then a move towards the disengage, and now we're seeing a return. I mean, the fact that you can use that Fate's Call to position aggressively opens up so many huge Annie Tibbers. Between the Fate's Call and a Flash, you're covering so much a distance, and you can be very aggressive in lane. With the long auto attack range, Atlas, you can get the W passive away and do a lot of damage in lane. So I do like the synergy coming through, but we actually see the lock-ins coming from Sudden Fear.
Yeah, Sudden Fear, so much engaged lockdown here as Christmas Trees goes to his most successful champion. You have to think that Gnar coming through. He's going to be able to pair that with the Lissandra for so much lockdown, not to mention Leona here as well. Brawler playing that one quite a lot, has played 3 extra games actually on the in the OPL thus far on that champion, but there is so much ability to engage coming through from Sudden Fear, and we'll see whether Legacy they can answer it, because Tallywacker, he's got a lot of kite potential on that Kalista, and Ejim can now pair up with Carbon for gigantic AoE CC.
Kind of my big consideration here for Sudden Fear is that they're looking for team fights, and so are Legacy. It's going to be a team fight game. They'll lock in on Cassiopeia, another champion coming through from Choo-Choo's. I believe we've seen it once before. We've seen a bit of Cassiopeia. It comes and goes, actually, not because a change is necessary, just because of the popularity of that champion. But this is team fight comps on both sides. This could be explosive on the Rift.
Yeah, and the layering. I'm talking about the layering of CC forever, but both of these sides with multiple ultimates to come through can almost permanently lock down teams. We've talked about, you know, having stuns last for multiple seconds. Generally, that doesn't happen so much in League of Legends, but there is like 7 seconds worth of CC in a massive AoE coming through from Legacy.
And the amusing thing is the Legacy, you know, they went with the front line with the first 2 picks, Irelia, Sejuani. You know they want to dive the back line. Usually a team will react and say, okay, maybe we need a Janna, maybe we need a bit of disengage, just the Nami. But Sudden Fear said, nope, we're going straight for team fights. Kind of my issue, though, for Sudden Fear as we load into this game is that Sudden Fear, they've got a team fight comp. They don't have a lot of dive, though. They don't have an Irelia to get into the backline to trade upon her passive with the lowered CC reduction coming through and getting to the backline. They also don't necessarily have a split pusher to deal with Irelia. So even though there's 2 team fight teams, even though these 2 teams do team fighting best, that's what their team is picked around, Irelia could be kind of the big factor. Of course, makes a lot of sense. Minky back into the lineup, already going to take on a pseudo carry role in the fact that if she ever gets considerably stronger than Lissandra, if no one can deal with her in the split push, they'll have that extra strategic option, will Legacy, that I don't really know that Sudden Fear can answer.
Yeah, it's going to be very frightening. And Minky coming back in here as well. And you have to say, into a pretty decent matchup here for Irelia as well against the Gnar. We've seen sort of the Gnar matchups spring out of nowhere over this season. And Irelia has been one of those champions that's been able to deal with him the best. And
you know, with the little Gnar nerfs, you have to think that shifts the lane towards Irelia once again. Sounds like there might be Irelia nerfs in the future, but her stun's still at full power. She's still very, very strong on this patch. We've had all the little nerfs to the Rage Bar specifically and the uptime on Gnar. So some teams have completely moved away from Gnar. Some teams still playing it with relative success. But, you know, whenever you see those small nerfs, you just know that the lane counters are already good, are just going to become better and more reliable. Sudden Fear, picking the Gnar for comp rather than necessary for lane. But in the early levels, you still expect Gnar to just bully around the melee Irelia.
Yeah, well, it's true. And, of course, Christmas Tree is there in the top lane. He's the one with the benefit of having that early game jungler in Lee Sin here as well. Sejuani, not sort of known for making it out of that jungle all that early, because as you mentioned, she generally struggles to actually survive the jungle just on her own in that first round.
And when you play Sejuani, it's always, you remember the level 5 clear, the level 6 clear, but the first clear, so painful. So multiple people falling down to flashing health. You have to be very careful. Ensure you have that smite available for the red buff. Just get that extra burst of health because you need it.
Yeah, well, it's true. And it does mean that Carbon not going to be available for a gank very early on here. So maybe it might be up to a Pink Bomi to really affect the map early because they have the ability to snowball this game. You have to think they've got massive engage potential. They can force fights whenever they want, but it does rely on them actually wanting to fight.
Absolutely. And look, you got a skirmish jungle. You expect him to get in there in the early levels, as you say, and try and match for perhaps. Doesn't have the pressure of Sejuani at 6, but so much more leagues ahead in the first 5 to 6 levels.
Yep.
So just take and ensure that your lanes are snowballing before Sejuani becomes relevant.
Yeah, and if we cross down then to the mid lane here as well, massive burst potential coming through from both of these champions. A fair bit of CC here as well coming through from both sides, but it could be very volatile there in the mid lane. And we've seen Choo-Choo's play this Cassiopeia to such great effect, and he's picked up the cleanse. So that Frozen Tomb, not going to be too frightening.
I actually worry for Lissandra in this matchup. You don't say that about a lot of Lissandra matchups, but the issue is Lissandra has a regular escape. That's why you see her in top lane and mid lane, the fact that she's so safe with the Glacial Path. You're going to eat a lot of Twin Fangs as you're casting that ability. It won't get you out of damage necessary against a Cassiopeia, of course. Takes time for the path itself to grow. That extra 2-3 seconds, we know that the cooldown of Twin Fang, if you register a poison, is very, very short. So won't necessarily be able to trade upon that for defense in a 2v2 lane. So if we see the tier into perhaps the Rylai's, we've already seen Cassiopeia's take over a game. It could happen here again for Choo-Choo's.
Yeah, and Choo-Choo's, of course, has shown that he's absolutely phenomenal in that champion at the same time. And just the damage potential to come through is so frightening. And you couple that with a gank from Sejuani, who's level 6, ain't a lot that Alessandra is going to be able to do. Because that Petrifying Gaze, you're not going to be able to get out of the stun.
Absolutely, especially if the Sejuani ult comes from out of vision and she doesn't actually manage to juke backwards. We're talking about, 3 to 4 seconds of consistent CC, then burst damage coming through anyway. The kill pressure is high at 6, but before 6, there's still plenty of window for Bomi on his trademark Lee Sin to do a lot of work.
Yeah, and we keep coming back to it, don't we? The fact that a pink Bomi really needs to be the one moving around this map and affecting these lanes. But speaking of lanes, the bottom lane, Moon and Brawler here on Leona and the Sivir. There's a lot of power in that lane, a lot of burst potential coming through from the Boomerang Ricochet combo. Of course, the only champion with an auto-attack reset, as you like to mention quite a few times. But of course, Kalista, not all that powerful very early on, but if that lane goes well here for Legacy, they can abuse that W passive from the Sentinel.
Oh, that's the interesting consideration. Kalista, if she takes Rend at level 1, is decently strong. She can push the wave, even though she doesn't have ranged wave clear. At level 1, she has pretty good wave clear because, of course, the cooldown resets if you get a last hit with the Rend, so you can push in a wave. Some Kalista players take the Rend, others take the Sentinel. Does give you a bit more damage to neutral, so if you were going to start the Gromp, perhaps you'd want Sentinel. The W is your first pickup. But if you take Rend, you can navigate level 1. I give the early level advantage to Sivir after about 2 or 3 when she gets that Ricochet active. But Kalista, you never count her out in a laning phase.
Yeah, well, it's true. We've seen Kalistas be pretty incredible. But ladies and gentlemen, here we are for our first match of the day. Sudden Fear taking on Legacy. We'll see whether Sudden Fear can put their mark on this game early on, because you have to think, with all of the lockdown potential coming through from Legacy, things could get difficult as time goes on.
It's such an important game for both teams that there could be a lot going on strategically, even at level 1. Sudden Fear, they know they come into this game underdogs, but can they try and just engineer level 1, get a 3 buff, get a pick, and set themselves up for what would be a surprising victory?
Well, they're already setting up for one here as they're sitting in this bottom side brush. Ejim trying to scout out B. Human Ward does get the vision there as well. Not too many members of Sudden Fear able to actually cross that wall, and that ward is going to be helping out quite a lot here for Legacy.
So compared to Sudden Fear, we do see Legacy do have the defensive fan. Everyone's just watching exits. They just want to get Sejuani a power clear. Looks like Sejuani might actually be starting on the red buff, though, starting on the top side of the jungle. Of course, they're respecting the fact that there could be a potential invade in top. I think it just gives them options. There's no real big incentive to start the blue buff, like, for example, a skirmish jungler like Lee Sin, who wants to naturally path his way towards the top lane just to potentially relieve pressure or be available for a counter gank. When you're Sejuani, realistically, you're just looking to power farm, so they're going to start with the red buff. It's the safest of their buffs. It's the most defended. They've defensively fanned around it, and again, their objective is to get Carbon to level 6.
Yeah, and speaking of which, Tallywacker and Ejim here on the top side, we're going for a bit of a lane swap here, as Ejim and Tallywacker going to be able to take down these Krugs.
Yeah, they're starting the Krugs. They are opting out of lane. This is a red side lane swap. They are choosing to lane swap. The one thing you can mention here, even though the laning matchup we mentioned, the Kalista Annie versus Sivir Leona matchup, is just fine for Kalista. It's maybe not in her advantage, but it's a competitive lane. The thing to consider is that in a lane swap, especially with an Annie, Annie's such a great roaming support that there's a lot of potential for Annie to roam out of mid and just get Legacy an advantage into the mid lane early.
Yeah, and you saw that was actually Minky Whale taking away the Raptors at the same time. Of course, Aurelia with a fair bit of ability to take down multiple minions when you can take the Blade Surge early on, so you can get that reset multiple times. Minky Whale actually going to take down the big Krog here as well.
When we saw Minky Whale playing in the OCS, playing Trundle, he was actually picking up early buffs like the Gromp with the Doran start. He's always known for getting himself a little bit of extra experience, but the minion wave has been pushed aggressively to the bot lane turret, so he wants to teleport and start to lap up that lane experience as soon as possible.
Yeah, he is going to be able to take down that Gromp. Might actually have made it almost to level 3 here as well. As Minky Whale now preparing to teleport. There he is. Does actually have himself boots here for the bottom lane. And is now going to be able to continue in this 1v1 situation against Moon. And how does Aurelia do in a 1v1 against a ranged champion? I could imagine it's not that fun.
No, not until level 5. You know what? Until you get 3 points into either your hit end style or potentially to the equilibrium strike. When she gets level, she does just fine. It's very interesting to see the first pickup of boots, because for the same amount of gold, could have got a cloth armor and a pot just to give a bit more of laning statistics. Didn't pick up a ward, didn't pick up extra regen, just picked up the boots. So look, it'll help her if Lee Sin comes for a gank to potentially navigate away from the Q, but otherwise, not offering much against Sivir.
Yeah, we've got an interesting 2v2 situation here on the top side of the map. Christmas Trees has this mini Gnar, of course Mega Gnar at the moment, but does transform back. He's going to work out much similar to a regular 2v2, just because, you know, ranged and a support, no problem.
But not ideal to have a melee support when you're trying to relieve pressure against a double range lane in Annie Callista. Leona can't actually offer very much, barring perhaps just a little bit of sustain from the Relic Shield, so it doesn't actually give too much more lane presence to Sudden Fear.
Yeah, Carbon now looking to take down this Rift Scuttler here as well. Pink Bomi back in base, does pick up the Trailblazer, not going for any fancy smites too early. Carbon hasn't actually been back to base just yet. Of course, the early clear from Lee Sin a little bit more effective. Minkuel just farming up against Enfamoon, and he's doing just fine.
Yeah, look, there's not too much to report whatsoever. In terms of CS, we see between the 2v2 lane in the top and the 1v1 lane in bottom, both Minky Whale and Christmas Trees are doing just fine. Of course, it's going to be lower experience level for Christmas Trees, so it isn't going to reach level 6 as fast, but probably not going to be too massive a concern.
Yeah, and it's actually going to be Carbon picking up the Skirmishes Saber here as well. So there has actually been word here, of course, speaking to Spawn, our other analyst over here in our caster resort. I don't know why I call it a resort.
Resort, sure.
It's a little bit ridiculous. But he does have pretty strong opinions on Skirmishes Saber being very good on this patch.
I think Skirmishes Saber compared to, say, the Chilling Smite option is an interesting consideration. The big thing that's happened is that now with the cast range being lowered, it doesn't give you the 50% slow. The cast range is lower. You can't just walk into lane. Oh, as we might see a gank in top.
Yeah, actually, Pink Bomi going to safeguard his way in. There's the flash into the Sonic Wave. Lands it onto Ejim here, who's burning down Christmas Trees. The fadeaway Boomerang picks up the kill as Tallywhacker looking to try and get some damage back now onto Brawler and Christmas Trees. They may have to be careful. There's the Pierce. Pink Bomi going to come through with a safeguard, but Sudden Fear with the first blood.
And worth knowing what Leona doesn't provide in terms of being level 1, no sustain. She provides in spades for ganks in the top lane. Very nice engage coming through. The resonating strike connected from Lee Sin. First blood and first advantage to Sudden Fear. Yeah,
really beautiful stuff. Carbon going to take this opportunity to try and get some things done in the enemy jungle here on the bottom side. Minkuel just blade surging his way around this minion wave. Of course, fairly unharassed here on the bottom side, actually catching up to Enfamoon as far as that farm is concerned. And Minkuel, we've heard tell of his Aurelia, apparently very, very strong at the moment. But we'll see whether he can demonstrate it here in this game, of course. Only level 5 at the moment, hasn't been able to influence too much, just farming it out. And you can see, even after that first blood went down, only 100 gold in the lead is Sudden Fear.
Only 100 gold, and look at the items. You can see that lots of that comes from the mid, though we might see Carbon paying a visit. He thinks better of it.
Yeah, Brawler now in this bottom side, and it is going to be just a 2v2, so Carbon not wanting to go in with not full health, and he's only level 4, doesn't have that incredibly impactful ultimate just yet.
Look at the mid lane. Look how much zoning is already happening by Cassiopeia to the Lissandra. This is kind of what we forecast, is that with the fairly low cast range of the Q coming through from Lissandra, she has to get to the minion wave. She's getting zoned away just by the implied poison. Of course, the moment Choo Choo's hits a Q, you're going to register multiple Twin Fangs and a lot of harass. So with that lowered wave clear coming through from the Q nerfs in patch 5.5, this lane matchup got even worse for Lissandra, and that's why we're starting to see a 20 CS advantage with no jungle pressure at all 7 minutes in the mid lane.
Yeah, Pink Bomi is going to be able to clear out this pink ward, but do you think that might be a reason why Legacy went for this lane swap, create that mid lane island?
It could be. I don't think it's necessarily a massive consideration for Legacy. I like the flexibility of just being able to roam around with Annie and have a bit of lane presence, and you navigate what could potentially be a tricky lane in the bottom lane. It's not necessarily a direct counter lane matchup, but the flexibility of having Annie coming through for a gank in mid adds pressure, forces Lissandra to play more defensively. But Sudden Fear, they have more members on the bottom side of the map because of this lane swap from Legacy, so it should be an easy first track.
Yeah, and they have complete vision control over that bottom side as well. You can see Legacy with a few wards here on the top side, but the bottom side of the map very bare, as Minkuel going to be trying to close out the bottom lane. Christmas Tree's in a bit of trouble here from Carbon, but of course does have the bounce, can escape there, but that is going to cause this top lane outer turret to fall down. The first turret of the game going to Legacy, and that is going to solidify a little bit of a gold lead here for these guys.
And look, a turret for the first dragon, the current thinking is that that is of the advantage for Legacy. In terms of gold, they're now 1,000 gold ahead. Irelia, as you mentioned, has done so well. 72 CS, can be completely unhindered. Actually has more CS than the Sivir in that laning matchup.
Yeah, and Sivir not even actually back in lane here as well. So Aurelia able to go back with 2,000 gold here. And Minky Whale going to be gigantic in these fights.
And look, Minky Whale's been keeping his practice up. He's been up the top of solo queue. He's been playing in the Challenger Series. He's very practiced. Adding Aurelia to his already formidable tank champion pool seems to be working out great for Legacy.
Yeah, and I actually remember just before they were going over to Wildcard, they were scrimming so many times against the Chiefs to try and make themselves the best that they could possibly be overseas. And I believe that Minky Whale had a little bit of trouble against Swiper's Aurelia at the time, and seems that the tides have turned, and Minky Whale now with a whole lot of practice on this champion.
I mean, always been in the competitive spotlight, has Aurelia been a popular champion since release. Very, very strong and so reliable, and even has a great laning matchup against Christmas Tree's famous Gnar pickup. You know, his most reliable pickup for the team has been the Gnar. So he's just covering himself with advantages, and in terms of the laning phase, it's done wonderfully.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting because the Nidalee bans that come through against Sudden Fear are actually against Christmas Trees. He has never been able to play his Nidalee. That is what he's been banned away for. This is what I hear, because of course we haven't had it demonstrated thus far in the OPL.
That's true. It's been a consistent ban, despite the fact that we didn't know if it was a jungle ban or a mid lane ban. So it being a top lane ban, a lot of respect coming through. See the start of trades in top.
Yeah, Minky Whale actually using that Transcendent Blades. Not too worried that a pink Bomey's hanging around. Level 8 to level 7, but of course, you know, that's a level 6 Lee Sin that Minky Whale doesn't care about.
I mean, the damage trade was so landslide that it actually dissuaded Bomey from going into what was looking to be a turret dive. So Minky, with the extra items, the Ninja Tabi especially, can shrug off the damage from Christmas Trees and put out plenty of his own.
Yeah, well, it's true, and we'll see what he's going to be maxing there in the top side. Of course, Equilibrium Strike has been an option for a lot of these top laners, but Minky Whale, it almost doesn't matter here because he's got a free lane to farm in.
He's got a free lane to farm in. This Aurelia will hit a massive spike around the same time. The tank items like the Cinder Hulk is coming through for Carbon, the same time as all the advantages are being hit for Legacy. And you worry that the moment the Trinity Force power spike comes through, the next Dragon perhaps, or the one after that, the teamfight comp from Legacy will be incredibly strong.
Oh, yeah, and Choo Choo's, look at this guy's farm. 110 at 11 minutes into the game, staying with the clock here on this Cassiopeia, and we know about Cassiopeia. She's a hyper carry mid laner, if there ever was one.
Absolutely, and the passive is ticking up, getting more and more poison attacks, because of course, Apex has to get so close to the wave to try and potentially push it in CS, which is already struggling to do. It's just adding to the aspect of the Serpent passive, getting it closer and closer to that 30% extra ability power, the Death Cap-esque passive that comes through at maximum stacks. And look, everything's going well for Legacy, and they don't even have to force it. It's not even through kills or even dragons. It's just in terms of laning.
Yeah, and Tallywhacker able to stay even on farm here as well. Of course, Emphamoon hanging out in that 1v1 situation, but of course, Tallywhacker still doing very, very well. Brawler here on the bottom side. Pink Bomey, sorry, is waiting around, but he is going to head back to base now as a nice boomerang does come across Tallywhacker. Again, Christmas Tree is actually forced out of this lane. You can see Sudden Fear. Oh, there's the flash tippers here in the bottom side of the map. Emphamoon takes so much damage as Carbon comes in, but he's so squishy. A pink Bomey just finishes him off. They're not finished yet either as Tallywhacker trying to turn this one around. There's Rend onto a few members here at the same time. But can't quite manage to get the extra damage down, but that turnaround was beautiful by Sudden Fear.
The pathing from Bomey to be there at the precise time. Carbon dies with the Glacial Prison up, was looking for the right angle to get it onto the backline, specifically Emphamoon, was kind of trying to bait out the spell shield before he used the Glacial Prison and died before he could use it. Excellent play from Bomey. They might re-engage.
Yeah, there's the Zenith Blade in here as well. Tallywhacker's going to die, and a pink Bomey is a monster on this map.
And we asked what could he do on Lee Sin before Sejuani started to impact the lanes. The answer is, damn, quite a lot. 2-0-1. And Carbon needs to be very careful that he doesn't continue to fall behind, because if Lee Sin can get damage ready, we'll have the Warrior enchant when he backs. If he's in the right spot, if the counter gank comes through and they don't manage to explode someone during the Glacial Prison CC duration, Bomey's going to do some work.
Oh, he's already doing some work here as well, as Emphamoon has almost finished off that Infinity Edge, only needs another 1,375 gold for that one, as Tallywhacker does have his Bloodthirster first up. So that is very, very important. Tallywhacker hit a power spike a little bit before Emphamoon has. And going for that Bloodthirster before the Hurricane, what do you think, Papa Smithy?
It's a lot of sustain. It allows what could be a difficult laning matchup. If ever he takes a damage trade from Moon and Brawler and hits to half health, can always back away, look for Annie to tank up the Gromp, pick up a bit of lifesteal. Bomi and Carbon find each other in the jungle. Cassiopeia, given the lane matchup, is going to be the first person to react.
Yeah, and Choo-Choo is actually seen by Ward here as well. Legacy, they now know that this dragon has respawned. Brawler's going to get stunned up from Ejim here as well. There's the Arctic Assault. Does land on the Brawler. Forced to use that flash to get out. But nothing more going to be found. Tallywacker with that shield to come down. What the heck? There's the flash onto Christmas trees from Minky Well as they're launching themselves onto the top lane. A beautiful Frozen Tomb does so much damage to Legacy, and Carbon's going to go down first up. Tallywacker going to flash out of the way here as well as Brawler's just being annoying in the backside. Enfamoon takes down Ejim, Petrifying Gaze onto a Pink Bomi just to try and disengage, but Choo-Choo's, he's going to die. Enfamoon picks up that kill, and Sudden Fear 7-0.
The engage from Paps was wonderful with the self-cast Frozen Tomb, and who was coming powered up, but Enfamoon and Brawler got the first kill with focus fire onto the members. Carbon died almost instantly. They turned on to Annie. I thought that might be a problem. They're going to get some Ren stacks coming through from Tallywacker, but Bloodthirster, it helps you in the laning phase, but you don't have the potential of the Ren sets in a team fight. Without attack speed, the Ren AD scaling isn't super high. It's about getting consistent stacks, and he just doesn't have the attack speed to do it yet.
Yeah, and they take the mid lane outer turret. They're going to take the second dragon for themselves here as well. And Legacy, they're looking for some cleanup kills. Arctic Assault doesn't find Enfamoon. He spell shields something, but that is not going to be enough as Minky Well picks up a reset on his Blade Surge for the first kill for Legacy.
Look, someone had to pay for it. Ended up being Enfamoon. Of course, it helps his back timing. Less back timing with the blue pill.
That is so
dead.
important.
We'll be able to finish his Infinity Edge. But crucially, one return kill for what's now 2 dragons and equal turrets, but 7-1 in kills. Sudden Fear, they'll accept it.
Yeah, Sudden Fear looking fantastic so far. It's only a 2,000 gold lead. Of course, nothing to really write home about, as Choo-Choo's is going to be able to take down this blue buff here as well. And Choo-Choo's just wasn't really able to impact that fight at all. Sort of was on the sidelines, but no one on Sudden Fear was really stacking up for that ultimate to really be a problem.
So when you see these Cassiopeia games, sometimes they go off and they're able to chase people down with an early Rylai's, really impact fights, and you wonder, why don't we see more Cassiopeia? It's kind of the same reason we don't see a lot of AP Cho'Gath, in that her skills aren't very reliable. Her ult is so situationally strong. If the enemy team dives you, you activate it, get a 4-person stun. You can consistently get a lot of damage out with the poison.
Oh.
Brawler, though, needs to be careful.
Yeah, does land the stun here to Ejim. Brawler pretty tanky here at this stage. There's the Solar Flare. Carbon taking so much damage. He's going to have to get out of there as well. It is going to be Brawler falling down as Ejim. He's going to get Fates Called. And Legacy, they pick up one, but that was difficult.
Yeah, the return damage from Enfamoon was massive. Already quite a lot of critical strike. Choo-Choo's been caught.
Yeah, a lot of damage here as well, as Pink Bomi's just ignoring everything that Choo-Choo's is doing to him, just kicking him. There's the Sonic Wave. Ejim comes around, though. We'll see whether it actually manages to pick up the kill as Tallywacker, he comes down, and that's going to solidify it as Legacy. They answer back, but a Pink Bomi is playing so aggressively. Christmas trees, he might be dead. No, not this time.
Yeah, very good mechanical skill from Lee Sin to pick up the kill, but he got a bit greedy, turned around, tried to kill Annie as well, and passed over a large bounty to Tallywacker. Kalista, importantly, was the one to pick up that kill. Gonna accelerate him towards his attack speed item, whatever he decides. Now suddenly sitting on 1,400 gold, so only 1,100 gold away from a theoretical pickup of the Hurricane. That's what we're expecting when we see Bloodthirster first. Giving over gold bounty to a Kalista, never ideal.
Yeah, very, very frightening. That was actually Tallywacker's first kill of the game here as well, and now finally managing to pick up a bit as Ejim. He's going to come and help with this Rip Scuttler, and that is something to be said here for Legacy. They've had complete control over these jungle camps, or the river camps, this game. So a lot of extra vision to come through for free here. But the vision control actually coming down from Sudden Fear has impressed me a lot.
Yeah, the Sudden Fear aggressive vision on the enemy Raptors towards the wolves. I love the aggressive vision and then the double pink wards to ensure that no easy dragon control vision comes through from Legacy. It's great vision. The one thing I want to comment on, though, is that these team fights have been very skirmish-based. It hasn't been true 5v5s. It hasn't been Glacial Prison initiates into Aurelia diving the backline. It's been teleports coming through. It's been unorganized. Skirmishes are where Lee Sin comps come up the biggest. With all the gap closes available between the bounce, the Lee Sin Q, and Safeguard, and the Glacial Path coming through from Paps, they're really winning the unorganized fights, but you can just see a fight when Tallywhacker's fighting next to Chooch's, where if you want to kill this Callista, you have to gap close onto potentially the Petrifying Gaze. Carbon and Minkiwa have a very strong dive. This early game has very much suited Sudden Fear, but you can just see in terms of laning matches, Minkiwa's already starting to pressure Christmas Trees out of lane, has hit a very strong item timing with the Trinity Force. Don't be deceived. In the late game, you'd still take Legacy's teamfight comp over what Sudden Fear have to offer.
Yeah, well, it's true, and we'll see whether Sudden Fear can carry this through into the later stages. Already set things up for themselves quite nicely, but it may not quite be the lead that they were looking for, as Choo-Choo's, he has the Abyssal Scepter, has also those Sorcerer's Shoes, so a lot of flat penetration to come through from this Cassiopeia. We'll see whether Choo-Choo's gets the team fight that he's looking for, because this is not the effect that this Cassiopeia we were expecting him to have.
No, not yet, but we saw from the laning phase how far he was ahead. That's been cut down as Paps has picked up a lot of gold in the team fights. The 1 kill and 3 assist gold has helped to bring him up towards Choo-Choo's gold values. If we tab over, he's actually even despite what was a horror laning phase.
Yeah.
So they've needed that extra bank from the 1 team fights early. But the biggest thing they've taken away, it's the 2 dragons. Move towards 5 dragons. Doesn't really matter what inherent disadvantages your comp might have in a 5v5. You're very likely to win fights if you haven't already lost a seismic amount of your base beforehand. So just keep picking up the dragons. The 3rd dragon, the rotational advantages that brings with the 5% move speed, is an important step towards that massive 5 dragon win condition for Sudden Fear.
And Infamoon is powering up here himself. 2-1-4 now on this Sivir. Does have the Infinity Edge. Is going to go back and potentially pick up Static Shiv, or his way towards that Phantom Dancer as well. We'll see what he does decide to go with.
50 seconds away from Dragon, so this is the time you want to shop. You don't want to leave it too fine, because of course, if you have less than 5 members around Dragon, you're going to cede the ward advantage, because you just won't be able to face check brushes or try and get aggressive pink or even green wards down that close to the Dragon spawning.
Yeah, it's actually going to be a pickaxe here for Infamoon as well. Just wants some power now for this next Dragon fight. I definitely respect that as Carbon not going to get tagged by the Sonic Wave, and a Pink Bomey going to throw some more vision down here as well. The double sight stones coming through from Sudden Fear, not yet answered by Legacy. There's a lot of health now being built up by Carbon, but he's going to need some of those resists, because we've seen that his health bar tends to just get destroyed. Ooh, Resonating Strike to come through. Pink Bomey steals away the blue buff and comes out with relative ease.
He does, of course, have 15 seconds. His Smite is available. It's just about the right time for Dragon, so doesn't lose much having that second charge of Smite available. Very nice steal.
That was a beautiful ward here as well coming through from Legacy. They know exactly what's going on here around the Dragon. There's the Glacial Prison here as well, but only onto Christmas Trees. Tibbers comes down at the same time. Christmas Trees isn't quite dead yet. It's Sejuani's going to fall down. Aurelia picks up the kill onto his top lane opponent, but Choo-Choo's going to fall down here at the same time. Apaps very, very low there on the backside, but Tallywhacker looking to come through onto this one. Fate's Call from Egypt doesn't find the target as Tallywhacker, Brawler, sorry, you are most definitely going to fall down here, and the Callista starting to do some work. Apaps very, very low, and a Pink Bomey just sort of wondering what he can do, but the Dragon didn't fall down, and he might be able to go for a steal.
The big consideration, though, Atlas, they did not fight around their Sivir, who was assassinated by Minkiwa. They've got a Lee Sin, they've potentially got CC coming through from Brawler and Paps, but they let their Sivir die in the front line space, and they need to watch their positions in fights. But with a teleport, they might go back in.
Yeah, Pink Bomey, he comes through and instantly takes down Minkiwa. Pink Bomey not too worried about what happened just there as Tallywhacker, he's going to die as well. No Ren to come down, and the double kill here for a Pink Bomey, 6-1-6, and now they're going to be able to take their 3rd Dragon of the game. Sudden Fear playing so beautifully, unless Carbon can find something to do about it. As Pink Bomey, he's very, very low. Glacial Prison isn't available just yet. No steal to come down, just immediately kicked out. There's the flash from Carbon, looking for Apaps, but the Glacial Path a little bit too strong.
Yeah, very nice disengage mechanics coming through from Paps. Good that they were able to secure that Dragon. Doing all that work, picking up the kills, using the teleport, and then not getting that objective would have been a large momentum swing towards Legacy, even just in mindshare, just thinking, all right, we snuck this when we shouldn't have got it. Sudden Fear, they're keeping control, but as I mentioned, they need to fight smarter around their carries. Bomey's doing a lot of damage now, but Lee Sin always does a lot of damage before armor, before health, before big pickups come from the enemy team. He needs to transition into a defensive peeling role for the next fight, specifically for Infamoon.
Yeah, Carbon, he's going to come around and help put some pressure on this mid lane outer turret. It is quite low. But of course, Moon coming through here as well as Apaps. They are going to be able to clear out this wave very quickly. And that is something to be said here for Sudden Fear. They got a heck of a lot of wave clear in their AD and mid laner.
Absolutely. And wave clear can be so important to keep a game alive. But when you're winning like this, it's just extra incentive to be pushing, to move aggressively. If you're going to wave clear aggressively, you need to start moving your vision forward. They haven't been able to do that. In fact, there's a lot of pink wards on the map from Legacy. Both teams have pretty good defensive lines. Sudden Fear need to be able to take their advantage that they've generated through these 3 dragons, through the fact that they've won basically every skirmish that's happened so far, and just ensure that their vision gives them a chance to start contesting for the enemy buffs, not just securing their own.
Yeah, and it's almost like, you know, the vision is going quite well for both of these teams, but there's not a whole lot of vision denial coming through. As you can see, there's a lot of wards from both sides all over this map, and maybe more sweepers need to be used here in the right positions to actually clear out some of this vision for either side.
I think Sudden Fear really want to pick up this outer top turret. If they pick that up, so much easier to sneak into the enemy base, to start clearing away those pinks. You have that extra inherent vision from the minion line crashing into the inner turret. But that's the one objective they haven't picked up in the early game. They're even in turrets. They need to just rotate 5 members top. There's no dragon to be picked up. There's no other objectives in the bottom side of the map. This is the time to pick out another outer turret.
But look at this, a Pink Bomi actually transitioning into that Locket of the Iron Solari, really trying to help out his team, and that is a fantastic item against Cassiopeia, who does so much AoE.
But because they're not forcing, now Gnar has to go back, has to walk down to bottom lane. There's going to be significant damage from Aurelia onto this turret, and Aurelia had teleport advantage, doesn't have it anymore, so we'll just match the bottom push. But it feels like a window for them to safely take top outer turret has been passed.
Yeah, Minkuel is going to be meeting with Christmas Trees here on the bottom side, as he's going to throw some boomerangs across. Apaps trying to ward up the jungle here, but Legacy know exactly where he is. Choo Choo's looking to try and get something started.
There's no defensive wards, though, on this side of the map for Sudden Fear. They need to stay away from this red side jungle because they do not have the defensive vision to stand around there safely. In fact, all their pinks, barring one at blue, have been cleared out.
Yeah, all of their champions, though, towards this bottom side, as Christmas Tree is finally going to make his way towards the top, defend that inner turret. Minkuel not deciding to push any further up, actually walking very, very far back, not wanting to back in anywhere that's a little bit inconspicuous because, of course, hasn't seen the members of Sudden Fear on the map just recently.
And look, has 1,600 gold, so can go back and pick up a pretty big purchase. This time might be grouped with his team earlier around Dragon. The next Dragon's still a couple of minutes away, but they need to be pressuring objectives as a 5-man group because every time they've gone for a teleport play, it's actually fallen flat on its face so far, Legacy.
Yeah. Dragon, of course, not going to be available for another 4 minutes or so. Choo Choo's hanging around, picking up this blue buff. It does still have a ward on it. Pink Bomi, of course, looking for it one more time. Doesn't find it, but Carbon forced to steal that one away from Choo Choo's, and that is very important. Choo Choo's hasn't got a blue buff this game. He's got one. He got sort of the second blue buff.
And his issue also is that he hasn't really got a big completed item. I believe his backing now has 1,800 gold. It's going to be the Death Cap, going for pure damage. Again, that's a very feast or famine build. You either hit your poison and get a big kill, you get a massive ultimate, but you got no defensive utility out of the likes of Rylai's, which has been a very big Cassiopeia pickup so far in the OPL. You don't have the Zhonya's. You do have Abyssal for a bit of magic, but you don't even have a large health stack, either the Seraph's Embrace shield or the Rylai's health, respectively. So you can be assassinated, so you have to be very on point with your position. It's a very greedy but potentially high damage build coming through from Choo Choo.
Yeah, but the thing is, Legacy, they're not getting a whole lot of pressure put on them at this stage of the game. You can see Tallywacker just able to farm in that top lane. Minkuel has been constantly split pushing, and they've just been eating up these waves one after the other and keeping this gold lead very, very similar for Sudden Fear. When Legacy, they're probably more than happy to scale up into this game.
And that's kind of the issue. That's what a lot of these newer teams have difficulty doing. It's weird to call Sudden Fear a newer team. Of course, the OPL's already been going for 10, 11, 12 games. But you're comparing them to a team that's been and represented Oceania on the world scene, that's been around a long time, now with a settled roster. Bomi looks like he's going to have to seed this mid outer turret, and it's kind of incomprehensible given that every fight has gone to Sudden Fear in the first 28 minutes, that they're actually winning on turrets, only now going to be equalized slowly by Christmas Trees.
Yeah, Christmas Trees able to get some auto attacks into that top side. He does have a lot of tanky stats. There is a heck of a lot of health coming through here as a Pink Pony. He's going to get aggressed on by Minky Well. There's the Blade Surge over the wall, kicks him back, and Brawler, he's going to eat the ultimate from Carbon. Solar Flare comes down though. Emphamoon just having his way with this pig. He's going to die. Picked up by Leona of all champions. There's the Petrifying Gaze onto Christmas Trees, who's full of Ren stacks. Tallywacker not tearing them out just yet, but that is going to be a 1-for-0 here in favor of Sudden Fear, and we'll see whether they can push this one further. Pink Ward there in the brush shows Legacy exactly where they are. There are a few low health bars. The Minky Well looking to try and come in for some form of flank. They don't want to let this 4th dragon fall too easily. The
big consideration is even it's 10 seconds on Carbon, there's a lot of damage and initiation. The tip is still available.
Yeah, Ejim does actually get a 3-man stun here as well. Forced to use that flash to get out as, of course, no Petrifying Gaze available. Sudden Fear taking a lot of AoE damage from this dragon as now they're going to have to try and come through and try and make something happen as Christmas Trees, he comes out. There's actually the Frozen Tomb onto Minky Well. He gets destroyed. Legacy, can they get out of this one? Sudden Fear tearing them apart. Only Choo Choo's available now as he tries to go for the hero play. The shutdown onto Apaps. That's a big one, but Carbon alive again, but beautiful play from Sudden Fear.
Died to take down Cassiopeia, so now Sudden Fear, they need to pick up an objective. There's no vision around Baron. This is a risky one, but they're going to go for it.
Yeah, of course, Legacy with no ability to see that one. Carbon's Spidey senses are tingling, but he's going to have to walk over a ward if he wants to be able to see what's going on. Sudden Fear, health bars aren't too high, but that is the secure of the Baron. Carbon does get solar flared here as Emphamoon is just going to attack him over and over again. Only a cloth armor as far as that armor stat is concerned, and Carbon can't stand toe-to-toe.
So we watched the replay to take down the dragon. It's a nice initiation onto Minky. Probably didn't expect the Frozen Tomb to be available. The bounce into the backline. It's low health members, but they explode. I applaud Paps what he's done here. If Choo Choo's was still alive, they could not have tried to take the Baron. So much consistent magic, AoE damage coming through from a Cassiopeia. But the 1-for-1 trade, that's what got them enough map pressure to take the Baron.
Yeah, and Sudden Fear just playing so patiently. I was sort of unnecessarily calling them out here, saying that, look, Legacy going to scale up very, very well, so Sudden Fear need to be making moves. They just waited for that dragon and won yet another team fight by just playing it beautifully, playing it patiently.
Yeah, the patience, as you mentioned, it's just I think it's a sign that this team is really maturing, has been in the OPL a while, finally hitting their strides just like Team 4-Not towards the end of the season. But these established names like Legacy, like the Direwolves, they're having tough times playing against these other teams at the bottom of the ladder.
Yeah, Brawler looking for an engagement here as well. Carbon actually going to just get out of there as Fate's Call was used onto Ejim. Wants to try and defend this pink ward if he can. They do manage to take away the green, but Minky Well looking to try and get some form of flank as Sudden Fear now pushing.
The minion waves are pushing aggressively in Legacy's favor in both the top lane and the bot lane. So Sudden Fear, they have to send someone to react. They don't have teleport yet on Christmas Trees. You can see why he loves to play the Nut. His rotational play, the teleport usage, it's been far superior than that of Minky Well. He's been caught out a couple of times. And speaking of getting caught, Carbon has not justified the Sejuani pick like we saw from Naya. His engages, the Glacial Prisons, they haven't been hitting multiple members, but crucially, he's always died first in every fight.
Yeah, he seems to be getting picked off without sort of having the rest of his team in position here as well, which is not going great. But looking over the other side in the same role, 100% kill participation for a Pink Bomi. Only died once. This Lee Sin is absolutely amazing this game.
And has such a strong team fight build. The team fight utility of the Locket and also the Randuins just to tank some damage. And Tallywacker has been basically irrelevant. Despite the fact he's doing fine, he's got 3 kills. It's hard to burst through the Gnar and Lee Sin in the front line.
Yeah, of course, Christmas Tree is also with that Randuin's Omen. And Carbon, I mean, he's only managed to pick up another cloth armor just recently. He really wants to be able to get up to that Randuin's if he can. Choo Choo's, he's completed the Seraph's Embrace, so going to have a little bit more staying power in these fights with that shield. And Minky Well only going to get stronger as this game goes on. Now heading back, probably looking to pick up a Spectre's Cowl or something of the like.
Sudden Fear, they got the Baron, they got the 4th dragon, they're not getting many advantages out of the Baron. The big thing is the base is not broken. When the base is broken, as we saw when 4-Not broke the base against the Chief, anything is possible, any result can be gotten. But if you can just hold back despite losing so many global objectives and keep your outer turrets out, let alone your inhibitor turrets, you set yourselves up for a massive comeback. As we get longer, as we move towards the 40-50 minute mark, death timers get longer and longer. Carbon face checks Burmy, but for once, might not die.
Yeah, actually getting some respect here from the Sudden Fear members, just making his presence known here. And Minkuel continuing the split push here on the bottom side. Might be a little bit dangerous. A lot of forward vision from Sudden Fear. They know that Minkuel doesn't have any friends in the area. And if he pushes any further down, it might get dangerous. A minute and a half on this dragon will be the 5th dragon for Sudden Fear at 35 minutes into this game.
Absolutely. They snuck away the first dragon. Of course, there was vertical jungling happened. All of Legacy's pressure was in the top side of the map. Sudden Fear took the first dragon very intelligently. Have won fights around every subsequent dragon, but they haven't really managed to push the minions up. So it should be a very equal contest coming through from Legacy, despite the fact they're 8,000 gold behind.
Yeah, and 8,000 is a massive amount here. Of course, 35 minutes into the game. It's not game over here for Legacy by any stretch, but they're going to have to play these next few team fights so incredibly well if they want to keep themselves in this one. And we're looking at Carbon to really make an impact, really be strong in the front line.
I mean, Legacy's team is best when they're being engaged upon, just because Petrifying Gaze becomes much more of a reliable ability. The fact that they have to come to Sudden Fear and fight them at an objective like the Dragon, it just doesn't allow Choo-Choos to get the massive ultimate he's been looking for all game. We've never seen Choo-Choos fighting next to a hypercarry. I love Cassiopeia when she's next to a hypercarry because you say, all right, you die of me, you're going to get stunned, and I do plenty of damage as well if you're trying to kill my Kalista, my Vayne, whatever hypercarry AD you have. But just the spacing, Sudden Fear have done excellent jobs with flanking around the map. They have multiple initiation options between the Lee Sin, the Gnar, the Lissandra, and they've played them perfectly. You just worry when the first fight goes for Legacy.
Yeah, Christmas Tree is actually the only one stunned by the ultimate here from Carbon as well, as Pink Bomi is going to find his way out, and Sudden Fear, they're just going to disengage from this one, and that is a huge ult on cooldown here for Legacy.
They don't have the Gnar transformation, though. Of course, it's already transformed. It goes down in 15 seconds, so another 5 to 6 seconds before Mini Gnar is achieved. That's a good window to fight for Legacy, but the Glacial Prison is down.
Yeah, there's the Gnar into the 2 tanks here as well. Walloped is Carbon, half health now. They're the flash tippers onto Apex. They're trying to take him down early. The Zhonya's comes through, but that's going to be the Dragon steal here for Legacy and trying to turn around this fight if they can. Tallywacker dancing around this fight. Choo-Choos picks up Christmas Trees. A Pink Bomi going down solo. The flash into the Blade Surge. Double kill now for Choo-Choos as this snake is starting to become gigantic. Carbon looking for the Arctic Assault onto Brawler as the Piggy chasing down little Leona, and Carbon does secure it. So that is a 4-0 for Legacy, and they take away that 5th dragon. This is the fight they needed.
Yeah, Paps died with the ultimate available, wasn't able to use in the fight, used the Zhonya's for the first stasis, but couldn't get the self-cast in before he fell. And that just meant that Emphamoon was fighting against Sejuani in the backline, couldn't burst through it, and Legacy are getting so many advantages after the one team fight. That's what we said. Sudden Fear, for all their team fight skirmish wins, could never break the base. One advantage comes to Legacy, and the base is well and truly broken.
Yeah, they pick up the Dragon, and let's have a look at the replay as they do it.
So Sudden Fear really overextended to try and pick up the Dragon, still stolen away by Carbon, and you notice, got the Zhonya's but didn't get the self-cast ultimate. So now Sudden Fear, one by one, filing into the front. Emphamoon not able to fight around his tanks, just because of how that whole fight was positioned, and that was the win for Legacy.
Yeah, really beautiful as Minkuel now in a little bit of trouble. Blade surges to the Rift Scuttler, so he's going to stay safe for now. Is Emphamoon going to be able to take down this one as the Baron just about to respawn. Carbon Arctic assaulting himself back into this one. Frozen Heart almost completed now, wants to go back and grab it if he can. Brawler does get some vision over. Boomerang's going to stop the back from Carbon. It's going to be difficult. If this pig has to go home, could mean a Baron opportunity for Sudden Fear if they wanted to, but still does fairly relevant damage.
Yeah, at least Sudden Fear does have teleport on Christmas Tree, so he's able to sit back. He's now moving to Mega Gnar form, which of course has very high base damage on the boulder toss, can start to clear waves, just trying to relieve pressure in the mid so that they at least have an option of forcing down this Baron.
Yeah, and Minkuel now has another Warden's Mail in his back pocket. More of Malmortius completed. We don't see that one completed too often, as Minkuel wants to make sure that he's doing as much damage while he's low on health as he possibly can. And Minkuel loves getting in amongst the fight. You have to think that Mora Malmortia is almost a signature item for Minkuel.
And it's definitely a damage choice rather than a tankiness choice. You don't see double AP coming through from Sudden Fear. You just have AP burst coming through from Lissandra largely. So it doesn't necessarily have... If he was against a Cassiopeia and a Lissandra, for example, I think more is great. You fall low in health, you get that massive burst shield. It can be so effective. But in this situation, as you mentioned, it's mostly an aggressive option.
Yeah. But does suit Minky Whale's playstyle, most definitely. Is going to have that Frozen Heart relatively soon. Carbon has completed his here at the same time, so Infomoon not quite doing as much damage. It will hurt Christmas Trees just a little bit as well, as that Mini-Gnar likes to use a whole lot of auto attacks. Is Minky Whale going to cop a house? They're not going to be able to transition that into any aggression. And Christmas Trees is 4,000 health. This is a bit ridiculous. And you can see that auto attack with Hidden Style did nothing to Christmas Trees.
I mean, the biggest thing it got was the Randuin's pops. Of course, a fairly short cooldown, so it's not going to be a massive factor unless we see a fight very, very soon. Sudden Fear, fighting around Infomoon, can win a team fight. It's just accounting for Minky Whale is doing a lot of damage to everyone other than Christmas Trees, which is what potentially we'll see on our screens a few seconds ago. Peeling away Aurelia. If Aurelia dies first, it should be a team fight win for Sudden Fear, but that's easier said than done.
Christmas Trees continuing to put pressure here on the bottom side. Minky Whale probably not too worried about it, as neither of these top laners are probably going to be able to kill one another.
But now nobody's in the mid lane, so the Super Minions will start pushing for Legacy. Legacy do have strategic advantage. If they can delay a Baron or delay Gnar especially from rotating into the mid lane, they should be able to get a lot of map pressure working against Sudden Fear.
Yeah, Miasma going to come through just to try and zone out the members of Sudden Fear. Glacial Path going to get Apaps out of there. Is it EGM flashed for fun?
Yep.
Yep, party flash. Like it. Like it a lot. EGM having a giggle there as well. So, sort of, it was an odd choice, but I'll give it to him because it was adorable.
It's just obviously a small mechanical mistake. We'll have the Fates Call potentially to reposition himself for the Tibbers, but the aggressive Tibbers options in the backline especially suddenly look difficult for Legacy.
And it might have just been a bait play here as well coming through from EGM, wanting to bait out a bit of a Sudden Fear play because they want to be reacting to an engage rather than engaging themselves.
That's very next level, Atlas.
Oh, I know. He's thinking so far ahead. Of course, EGM has had a lot of critical acclaim internationally as well as one of the best supports, especially for his Alistair, but not on that champion thus far, and this might be his next level strategy for the Annie. Not sure.
Not sure.
We will see. Christmas Tree is going to get Equilibrium struck again, but I'm not sure whether it even did a damage.
Sudden Fear, you just worry that they've never pushed the advantages they've gotten. They're waiting for another dragon. Sudden Fear are waiting for this game to fall in their laps, and they need to be taking it to Legacy. That's what Legacy did the first time they got an advantage. Broke the base, took the inhibitor. Sudden Fear, they've been playing so defensively. They've never been able to get the aggressive wards into the enemy jungle. The pink wards have lasted a long time, only recently been cleared from Legacy's perspective, and they just keep equalizing vision. There's never been an advantage on the minimap to really show how far ahead Sudden Fear were. Remember, they were 8,000 gold behind not 5 minutes ago.
And it's still 4,000 gold. Maybe not quite that much just yet, but 3,500 gold is nothing to scoff at here. Sudden Fear still with an advantage, but Carbon able to clear out some vision here at the same time. Legacy with the vision control around this dragon. 2 Frozen Hearts completed, 4 items, 5 items here for Choo Choos and for Apaps. Minky Whale, actually, there's the aggression. The On the Hunt has been popped as Minky Whale might be in trouble here. Pops the Transcendent Blades. There's the ultimate we were looking for from Carbon as Tallywhacker safe on the backside. Christmas Trees trying to be a problem here as EGM trying to CC over the wall. Infomoon flashes into the pit. Not sure whether that's what he wanted to do as Minky Whale. He's still alive somehow, and Legacy, they're cleaning up this fight. Christmas Trees walloping over the wall, but Carbon, he's not going down anytime soon, apart from right now, of course, as EGM doesn't have the damage to take down this Gnar. And Sudden Fear, they're falling in the hands of Legacy and just unable to make those plays that you were talking about, Papa Smithy.
It was a very awkward place to fight as, oh boy, Christmas Trees does fall to the turret laser coming through. This could actually be the game, and it was looking like a decent fight. Infomoon was free hitting from out of vision over a cove, but then flashed in, saw low health values, had a cold rush of blood to the top of his head, and died. That was the big deal, just died. He did not need to do that. His team had tanks that were healthy. And Legacy, after having a game dictated to them for 35 minutes, largely by Bomi, who's still alive, they're going to win this game.
Yeah, beautiful to keep their heads calm as well on the side of Legacy. This is what we credited them for last year when they were in that best-of-5 situation, getting through to the wildcard competition. They kept their heads cool, and in the 5th game of all games, managing to take it to the Chiefs. So beautiful play, and keeping themselves in it, of course.
I mean, giving up the first 4 dragons, giving away so many advantages, the first Baron also going to Sudden Fear. the team just never managed to convert the objective pressure into a winning game plan. They just didn't seem to have a plan on how to get that inner rung of turrets. They never got the minions. That's the thing that I didn't have time to talk about. They never had the 6-man pushing for them. We always saw a large stack of minions pushing for Legacy, so the rotations could never come through despite the Sivir ultimate. And eventually, the game just went to Legacy.
Yeah, a little bit difficult, but we do have a replay, ladies and gentlemen, just to illustrate how Legacy managed to do this. And this is the dragon fight towards the middle of the game, I believe.
This is the part of the game where the game started to come towards. Remember, Legacy, no dragons at this point. This is the first big win for Legacy after 29 minutes of sudden fear advantages. So we'll roll the tape. Sudden fear had got very low on the dragon. They didn't know whether to DPS the dragon or come down. So they take the dragon. Minkuo gets caught. So this actually does go well for Sudden Fear. It's a very nice engage. I tell a lie. This is, of course, the 4th dragon being acquired. Sudden Fear, a good replay for them. And their team fighting was on point. They took down the Baron from that engage, but not the game. That was the thing. The team fighting was good. If they could take one thing away, they played the first 29 minutes very, very well. But from 35 minutes onwards, the next dragon, which, of course, went to Legacy. That's the video I thought we would see.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, producer. But look, they just couldn't take advantage of all the advantage they'd set up for themselves, and the game went to Legacy.
Yeah, of course. That replay that we just saw set Sudden Fear up for that 8,000 gold lead, but it just wasn't enough to really give it to the victory. But Legacy, they're going to be playing yet again, and that was a difficult one for them against Sudden Fear. And now the test is whether they can bring it to Direwolves. We'll see after this.